things that we are not going to talk about right now. Shh. Oh, hello, creepies and I have a goat on my hand. Hello, creepies and crawlies, and welcome back to another episode of Ice Cream Queens. We are excited to have you join us this evening, and we are really excited about the show that we have coming up. But before we get started, let's go ahead and bring in my lovely co-host, Magda
Hello.
and Lauren. How is everybody doing this evening?
Excited.
I don't know why every time you come on, I'm not expecting the good. And I was drinking and it about came out my nose. So fun.
It's like a rubber chicken or a goat. You get one or the two. It's like a rubber chicken, a goat, maybe a 9-iron, some chicken wire, duct tape. That's that kind of show tonight, by the way. Just so those of you who are just joining us and you don't really know what the topic is about, we are going to be talking about all things naughty, but we are going to be talking about bloodlust and the ick factor and maybe some psychosexual content that will get your blood pumping or get you running from the room. One of the two. One of the two. All right, so we got some awesome things coming up that we would like to share with everybody before we bring in our two very super special guests. And first of all, we have several events coming up. Lauren, do you want to start with the first one this weekend? What are we doing this weekend?
So November 2nd, we will be in, what is it, Nashville?
Nashville.
Nashville, Tennessee, and we are going to all three of us together in one space.
This has never happened before.
Ever.
I know.
We're going to be walking the runway in a gothic fashion show.
I'm so excited about this. You have no idea.
Yeah. So if you would like to check that out, that's going to be November 2nd at Canvas Lounge. Please go check it out. It's hosted by Goth Bats, and that's going to be very fun.
And I think our next, we have a busy November, which is very unusual for us. Usually we're like, okay, let's take a break. Let's relax. But Memphis Monster Con on November 9th and 10th, I will actually be at Barnes & Noble. They're doing like a Harry Potter day. So, of course, I will be there in my Bellatrix finery. And then, of course, MCFC, which is Memphis Comic and Fantasy Convention. We will once again be hosting the Piranha Room. And hopefully we will have a goth fashion show to go alongside that as well. And that's going to be on November 23rd. So please come out and visit and share and enjoy, because, these are places that you can have personal interactions with the ladies of Ice Cream Queens, and we would love to see you.
Come say hi.
Come say hi. So without further ado, I would like to bring in our two lovely special guests. Hello. And how is everybody doing this evening?
Hello.
Wonderful.
I love the kitty ears and the hoodie. We have ears and a red. Oh, does that have horns on it? I can't tell.
Oh, that's amazing. I normally have horns or something over here by me, but I have nothing today. I'm like, we're looking around.
Knives.
I know.
Oh, the mask. All right, sorry.
So I would like to take a quick moment and Dicey, why don't you start? Introduce yourself and tell a little bit about who you are, and then Chantel, if you will immediately follow, and then just kind of share what you guys do together. Because, okay, yeah,
awesome. Thank you so much for having us on Ice Cream Queens. I'm Dicey Grinner. I also go by Spicy Dicey. I write erotic sci-fi fantasy horror books, short stories, film scripts, and I co-host with my friend here, Chantel Renee, who's also a wonderful author, the Sex and Horror podcast. So we're just here to have fun with you ladies tonight.
Wonderful.
That's the best time, as long as people are just like, we're just here to like hang out and have fun.
That's what we do. How about you, Chantel?
I'm Chantel Renee. I'm an author. I do horror, some smutty stuff. I do art of all forms, pretty much music, painting. I'm delving into learning to tattoo. And yeah, I do all kinds of stuff. I just find something and I want to create, and I start creating.
What area of the world are y'all located in?
Texas.
Texas. Okay. We're all like Tennessee. Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
All
Yeah,
cheese.
it's hot as hell down here. That's why I have,
Ooh.
the 7 Street with the horns.
Yes.
In
We-
October, it's still hot.
Okay, so I have to stop and I was at Texas Frightmare this past year.
Okay.
I do believe you guys were there as well. Were you not?
Yes, and we were
Yeah.
for our third or fourth year straight. I
Third or
can't
fourth. I don't remember.
remember.
That is amazing. Because I mean, that is for those of us who are kind of in love with the whole concept of horror. Lauren, you're making faces.
I'm
Those
sorry.
of us
I went to Texas Frightmare a couple years before you did, and I remember seeing a podcast with 2 females, and I kept trying to catch their attention because I was like, we should have them on the show. But every time I had the time to go by their area, they weren't there, and I never got to stop and talk to them. And so now I'm sitting here like the math is formulaing in my head. And anyway.
That sounds
That
like
was
us.
I'll be honest with you. I think that is pretty much the nature of anybody who is in the con circuit that is podcasting and you're making appearances, whether you were doing cosplay, costuming, or you're doing panels and stuff. Lauren and I travel quite a bit and do cons ourselves. We do horror cons, but we also do a little bit of everything. And I don't know that we're ever at our table, ever.
Right.
It's just, yeah,
There's just
kind of a
so much to see. Yeah, so much to
Mhm.
see, so much to get involved in. And who wants to just be behind the booth the whole time? We do interact with people like that, but then we got to get out. We got to get into where the attendees are and talk to them. We got to see the vendors and mingle, and then we got to buy stuff. We buy a lot of stuff when we go.
I lose so much money being a guest at conventions just because I buy so much.
Or we go wait in line to meet someone.
Yeah.
There's that
Right.
too. And I don't know, like with Texas Frightmare this past year, we stood in line forever attempting to meet for the second time to do the meet and greet with Matthew Lillard and never quite made it there. It was, yeah. I'm still heartbroken over that, but I think we might have something else planned in the near future that he's going to be at. So I'm excited.
Oh, nice.
All right. Okay, so we do have a topic tonight, and that seems to be we always have a topic. I don't know that we always stay on topic, but we're going to try our best. This topic, I have a feeling we will stay with. So we are actually wanting to talk a little bit about, let's talk about sex and horror, and specifically, let's talk about those topics that have a tendency to gross people out. Let's talk about the ick factor, but let's also talk about, the bloodlust. And Lauren, I know that you have been doing some research, and I know I sometimes step on you when I start getting into my psychosexual aspect and trying to figure out what the hell I'm talking about. So, tell me a little bit about what you have been researching, and let's just kind of go round table and talk about what is, what we like, what we don't like, and what makes us go bleh.
So if we're going to start with scenes that mostly would give people the ick, but I watch it and I'm just like, yes. I can't not talk about, it's one of my favorite films of all time, Queen of the Damned. The bathtub scene with the roses everywhere and Lestat and Akasha, that scene is just one of my all-time favorites. Second coming in would be it was a very bestiality-esque scene. Dracula. Bram Stoker's Dracula in the graveyard when he's like half wolf man form calling the girl out there. And that scene will forever be burned into my brain.
The lingerie that Lucy was wearing in the graveyard, the red. Oh my God, I have wanted to wear that all of my life. Just so you know, I am like that is. I want to wear that one day.
When I was younger, I would get Lucy in the red outfit confused with Lydia from Beetlejuice, and my brain combined the two characters, and I was just like, wow, Lydia was really kinky for like a PG-13 movie.
A whole different Beetlejuice that we never saw before.
I would be all for that Beetlejuice too, just to be honest with you. I'm here for some kink between Beetlejuice and Lydia.
I
He tried.
Oh no, he was trying. He was trying really good. Yeah. Okay, so let's just keep on going. So what are some scenes that like stick in your head, that the ones that are, it's like, I don't know if I'm liking this. I don't know if I'm hating this. I don't know if I'm turned on or not.
Mm.
I mean, I can't watch something on TV and actually see it as, or even a movie, as real, because I've worked behind the scenes at so many with different things for like haunted house attractions, and I do special effects makeup and stuff. So it's reading. When I read something, that's where my mind can create it and go, oh my god, that's horrible. A friend of mine wrote a story where the daughter was a type of monster she didn't realize she was becoming this other thing, and she can I talk about women's feminine products on this show?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So
We
she
just
ran
kind
up.
of stay away from the F-bomb.
Okay. Well, she went up to her mother, and her mother was on her period, and she yanked her tampon out and started eating it because she needed the blood. It's probably one of the
Teabag, ma'am.
more.
At least put it in a hot thing of water. Teabag.
Yeah.
Oh.
So Magna, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, no. Meanwhile, I'm being a bit of myself and saying that the vast majority of the sex and horror that I saw growing up was like Hammer films. There were so many sex scenes that obviously they'd been considered a bit more PG nowadays, but at the time they were shocking. You know, there were this beautiful. Oh, speaking of lingerie, they had the most lovely flowy things and frilly bits of nothing they were almost wearing, you know. And I love the fact that it was just so widespread through each and every one of the films. And I have to admit that they were probably the first time that I ever saw two women kiss was in Hammer films. And it was always so sensual and loving and gory at the same time because most of them were vampires. So, but I loved it. And I have to admit that was always the bits that younger me sort of felt like I was doing something extra naughty by watching all of these films.
I'm glad you mentioned vampires because that's where I was going to go. I can't think
Mm.
of a more sexy, horrifying creature. Yeah, we have the monsters, but I mean, I really love the ones that embody primal instinct. They're beautiful. Yeah, I know you mentioned Queen of the Damned, but when it comes to vampires, they have an allure. They're glamour. You know, they can glamour or captivate their prey in some way, and I really love that. I love there's something very intimate about bloodletting or extracting blood from some. I mean, that is pure life for someone else, and you are taking that into your body. So I think that is purely erotic, especially when the fangs are going into a body also. So that is just it's seduction wrapped into this monstrous idea that they could kill you at any moment too. Usually there's some sort of strength involved with them. So the blood itself and the passion could be ick for some because there's blood involved and stuff like that. But to me, it's all sexy. It's vampires get the term, you know, they have this horror thrown in on the genre, but the sexy aspect to me is what stands out.
And that's why I loved Eric Northman. Do you guys remember the Eric with the
Ooh,
highlights in his
yes.
hair scene where he's
Viking
like
Eric,
really giving
yes.
it to that chick? And
Mhm.
that was
And they've been
absolutely
Oh, yeah.
creepy and disturbing, but hot.
and he's been around for so long. I mean, just think of all the techniques he's learned along the way, you know? That's some expert
Aye.
skill involved.
Well, and I think that is one of the things that when you're talking about vampire lore and vampire legends, movies, literature, is the sexual prowess that these characters bring. They have knowledge, they have skills. And a lot of times they are described as being the best of the lovers. But when you talk about blood consumption in most vampire novels is written as as a sex act. It is meant to be sexualized.
Yeah.
And when you think about Anne Rice in her writing, I am a huge Anne Rice fan, as are I think at least my other two ladies here. But we are huge Anne Rice fans. And when you read the books themselves and you understand that the sexual content was not necessarily within contact, like a sexual contact that is considered normal, but it was basically bloodlust and blood consumption. That
Mhm.
is how sex was portrayed in those novels originally. And I think that there's something that we absolutely fall in love with, the idea of someone who can please us on every level and enchant us.
Mhm. And they also have a level of confidence because
Mm.
they can kill you, because they have been around for so long, because they're so strong and powerful. They have who has matched confidence. We know that confidence is sexy. So if you have, thinking of Eric Northman, Chantel, if you have Eric Northman sitting on his throne in Fantasia,
Oh,
Oh,
was it Fantasia?
thank
Yeah, it was
you.
Fantasia.
Yeah, okay, it's
Fantasia.
been so long. But yeah, I mean, that is exuding confidence. And I know I'm the man. I know. So let's go with Elvira also with her sex
Ooh,
appeal. I
oh,
am the
Mm.
woman. I know I'm coming with it. I'm bringing the fire and the passion, but also I know that you can't do anything with me. I am the top dog. I am the top of the food chain in here, and there's a strength that comes with that is beside physical strength.
when you talk about True Blood, because I love True Blood, and I love the novel or the books. I don't know that I would call them novels, but they were. I love the
It's a
series. I
series.
love the
Yeah.
Um, when you talk about the top dog, I don't think you can pass that up without talking about Alcide, and the pure feral vampire, or not vampire, but werewolf
Werewolf.
allure.
Yeah.
Oh, and I
Okay.
mean, no,
Sorry.
go ahead, please.
Random question. When it comes to the werewolf lore and the whole did anyone else just get the tirade of werewolf smut on Facebook? Like they were like, read this story, read this story, read this story, and then he takes her, and then and they're not the bestly written, but for some reason they draw you, and you're like, what? He's what? And then it pulls you anyway. Maybe that was just me. I can't think of werewolf anything without thinking of those horrible things. Yeah.
See, that
That's
takes me
awesome.
to one of my guilty pleasures when it comes to books and smut in general, is that Laurel K. Hamilton.
Yes.
Guilty
Oh,
pleasure, I'm sorry, but when you spoke of the tub scene with the
book
Queen of
number
Dance,
3.
yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
I immediately thought of Jean-Claude, because I actually have a nightgown that's got a rubber ducky on it, and it says Jean-Claude's tub toy.
Mm.
So I'm the philosopher between the two of us, and I find it very curious. Here we are, five women talking about this. And when you think about it, not necessarily talking about our sexual preference now, but when we were, being raised up, we were
Mm,
always talking about heterosexual sex, right?
mm,
As females, we are always weaker than our partner. So vampires being stronger,
mm.
how different is that from a man who could technically do whatever he wanted to us because
So
they
that
are stronger?
actually brings up my absolute favorite vampire movie of all time, and that's The Hunger. And
Oh,
that is a strong, beautiful, probably my first ever crush of all time, male, female, doesn't matter. My first ever crush had to be Catherine Deneuve. She's so delicious and so delightful. And in that movie, she is just in charge of everything and everyone, and so beautiful and detached and covetous at the same time. I just thought she was just absolute magic. I know she just gave me the vapors, but she's just fantastic.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's something we all got to, kind of think about. Like, even in our lives now, like I know I'm so bad about this, but we choose who we choose because sexually there's something about them we want.
Mm,
You see what I mean?
absolutely.
And it's just an interesting concept. Like, I've seen really large women with really tiny, tiny, tiny guys. I'm like, wow, they could break him. So that makes you wonder, like, they did that on purpose. They want to be the one in charge. They got the big. can I say the D word? They got the BD energy.
Mhm.
Oh no,
can
you
I
can say that. I understand. I mean, you
Oh,
can say big dick
I-
energy. We're good with that.
yeah, no, it's
okay.
sorry, I probably shouldn't say the story. No,
No, go
continue.
ahead.
I'm sorry, it was a dumb TikTok I was laughing at because someone was congratulating them on being part of the British broadcast company, but instead of saying that, they're like, "Yeah, thank you so much. I just really, really want to thank the BBC." And all of the Americans in their comment section lost their shit because they're like, "Do you know what BBC means here?" And I'm like, and everyone else is like, it's the British Broadcasting Company, right? And everyone else was like, that's not what that means here. And I don't know, it reminded me of that, and I was giggling over here.
These things definitely happen. Yeah.
Okay, so from the philosopher, but I'm just kind of curious. So, if your sexual fantasies happen to involve sex demons from, let's say, Hellraiser, let's talk about what. Okay, I got some nod. I got some head nodding. I mean, quite honest. I mean, there is something that is super, super sexy about not just Pinhead in his attire, and we know that he is the leader of the group, but honestly, when the new version came out and we saw the more feminine Hell Priest, which was a bit more in line with the books themselves. I mean, that was nothing but dripping pure sex, in my
Mhm.
opinion.
Oh yeah.
So,
I
okay, so
agree.
I'm just curious. Who thinks Hellraiser's hot?
I do. Pinhead is on
Okay.
my list. Yes, for sure.
Wow.
As you
What?
pointed out, there's a power play involved with a lot of sex.
Mhm.
But in horror films, it's actually considered quite normal for the women to be in charge of things. Women are allowed to be now, maybe not as much in earlier days. They were more, the one being acted upon. But in more modern horror, it's become the norm for the women to be in charge, for the women to be the powerful ones, for the women to be the feared ones. But not always the bad guy. Because in previous films, like in the Hammer films, like I mentioned earlier, if they were the one in charge, if they were the feared one, they were always the bad guy, and they always died in the end. Always had to be destroyed by some big bad man. Blah blah blah. But not so much. No, you have quite a lot of the feminine energy that's not considered bad, although definitely to be feared, which I have to say I find delicious.
When we have when you're talking about Hellraiser, there's also the chains and the that come out, and we've got leather. Black leather is something that's very
Latex.
erotic to me. So the aesthetics for those who like goth and darkness, then it's all there in Hellraiser. It's visually attractive just
Mhm.
looking at it. So yeah, and there's something erotic about succubus and incubus too when you mention demons and all that. But I got one for y'all. Okay,
Okay.
so
Okay.
Terrifier 3 is out
Oh,
right now.
okay. Are you going to
And
talk about Tara?
I'm going to talk about Art the Clown.
Oh,
Because this
oh,
episode is about the ick, right? So we're
yeah,
talking about the
absolutely.
ick. Now we've got Victoria masturbating with glass in this film. Now that is icky for a lot of people, but for a lot of people that's very erotic too. And then we have there's this scene where the couple the shower scene. Oh, okay, have y'all seen it? I don't want to spoil anything.
I
You can
have
spoil away.
you can spoil away. I have not seen it. I will see it, but you can spoil away. It helps me brace for
Okay.
what's coming.
Well, it's very, very gory. There's blood. This is a gore fest.
Mhm.
This is violence personified. This is blood and guts. It is, chopping. It's the whole time. It's considered torture. The
Yeah.
P
Porn.
word,
Yeah,
porn. Okay.
absolutely.
So, but a lot of people find this really seductive and attractive. And I know this because I was asking Chantel, like, did you get this from this? Because this is how I was feeling. I felt very energetic after the fact, where some people are passing out, they're throwing up, they're walking out, they're heavily disgusted by this. But there's a couple that are speaking, they're speaking about him in the film, and she is going on and on like she's a fan, and he's like, "You act like you want to f him." I didn't. I'm so proud of
Yeah, you're
myself for
good.
not dropping the word.
You're good.
And she was like, "Well, I don't want to do that." You know what I mean? But it kind of felt like she did. And I ended up in this Terrifier meme group where I see constant memes of people really rolling with that. The sexual aspect of this film, where it is like the epitome of violence and gore. So some very icked out, others are like, you know what, give me some more of that. I'm feeling this.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
you know,
there's-
I would agree 100%. Kind of to bring back what Magna was saying and what you're saying, I feel like Terrifier went into the feminine power part 2 when we saw the girl with the whole wings, and now in this part we had the female demon who was actually in charge of Art.
Mhm. That's
She
right.
was running him.
She is
And
running.
so, yeah, and so now I feel like it's a double-edged sword, ladies. You know, we want to be in control. We are, of course, all of us here have all had an encounter that we were like, "You're done? I'm not even going yet. What is happening here?" Unfortunately, right?
Mhm.
So I feel like it's wonderful that we are finding our sexuality and people are seeing us as the sexual creatures we are. However, men are getting lazy. Sometimes, you know, partners, period, can be lazy.
Mhm.
And so we've got to like what I think we try to do on our shows, we try to make it, we normalize toys and bondage and things like this, these kind of things that turn you on that are unconventional, because that's how we want your engine to get going with us so that we can all finish together.
And it's about consent. You know, that's the major
Absolutely.
thing. Like, if we're consenting, then that makes it sexy. Like, you can bring a little violence to the plate if we're consenting to it. That's where BDSM kind of comes from. You know, what people are bringing in their own natural proclivities, or this is therapy for some. You know, there's a lot of layers to that. And that's also, I think, what is shown in Hellraiser. When you bring up Hellraiser, you know, that kind of goes hand in hand with that. But the issue is when people take the violence and they want to control someone, and there's no consent involved. Now, there's nothing sexy about that. That's not sexy.
No.
If you're gonna go with that, it needs to be consensual non-consent, you know, and there's a
Absolutely.
genre for that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm reading a book right now based off of a friend's recommendation to me. And it is very non-consensual, but I'm already like so far, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna finish this book. But I think it's a really famous one. It's like called Haunting something Adeline or
Haunting
something.
Adeline. There's haunting and
Adeline.
hunting. Yeah, hunting
Yeah.
Adeline.
And it is very non-consensual in the
Yeah.
beginning, and it's
I should
puts you in a
qualify what I said
weird
about
space.
consent in person, like in real life. I should say consent in real life.
In real life.
Yeah, because in fiction we can let our imaginations kind of roll, and you know, yeah. I mean, in real life, because I will watch, I will read, and I will write some stuff that's really pushing the boundaries and the limits. But that's imagination. It's not really happening in person. When it's in real life, there better be some consent.
Fair enough.
I have a question, and this is to all of the ladies here this evening. When you are now, I am going to say horror, but I'm going to just in general, when you are watching horror, and let's say I am a huge Hellraiser fan. I also like things a little bit on the BDSM side. You can, I mean, there are things that you can do with me that would kind of rival that genre. And just, I'm sorry, I'm trying to be PG-13 as possible and not, talk about too much, you know what I'm saying. But let's say your partner is sitting there watching something that you're really into. Like, do you feel like that sometimes your taste in horror especially, just because it does kind of blur those lines, sometimes share a little bit more about what you're into. So maybe pay attention to what they're
Mm.
reading, pay attention to what they're watching, and perhaps you might get an idea
Mm.
of what you can get away with.
Absolutely. Well, that was why I was so annoyed with that wonderful story, 50 Shades of Grey.
Ugh.
Mhm.
Ugh. Okay.
That would be the opposite of what we were bringing up, movies that turn you on. This should be movies that were supposed to turn you on but didn't. Because I was like, this is not how that kind of relationship works. And especially, I get it. She was trying to use that he was abused and whatnot. That's why he was into that. And that's not always the case either. So communication goes along with consent. You've got to learn to talk to each other.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I
So
would have. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No. I was going to
I
say,
was-
let's touch base on some of the some of the movies, some of the themes, some of the. It can be books, it can be movies, it could be anything. But what are some of the things that you have viewed that you're just like, no way, no how? This is pushing the envelope a little bit too far. I will start by saying, quite honestly, there is one movie that I have seen that can never unseen, and that is Human Centipede.
Well, yeah.
And although it is in its finest torture porn, I mean, when you think about movies like Human Centipede and you think about movies like the original I Spit on Your Grave, when you have the scene with her in the bathtub where she removes his member, I mean, that is pure torture porn. And that is one of those things that steps a little bit too far over that line. Human Centipede is one of those things that it is. I don't think it's meant to be sexual, but it is definitely sexual in the way that it's presented. I mean, mouth to ass. Come on now.
Mm.
Hadn't thought of it that way. I've
Mm.
somehow missed that movie.
Don't watch the second one.
That's a hard question for me because right now I'm in this fun phase to where everything horror I'm watching is kind of on my kids' level. Because if I put something on the TV,
Fair.
my 6-year-old wants to watch it with me. And
Mm.
so a lot of the movies, like she's fine with blood, gore, she's fine with all that, but we're really cutting back on the sex stuff. I could the most recent movie I watched, and this was by myself, so no one judge me on that. That kind of gave me an ick factor would be Pearl.
Ooh.
There's the scene with the scarecrow and in the field, and I don't know why it icked me out as much as it did, other than the fact that it made me think of dead body. Like it made me feel like she's humping a dead body, and it just the whole scene made me very uncomfortable. And I was like, you know what? Been a while, but I think I'm gonna fast forward through this scene and just continue on. And I did.
There's a movie called May, May, May.
Oh,
I
love
remember that one.
Oh, see, I'm a seamstress, so I had so many friends telling me, "Oh, you have to watch this. You'll love it. It's fantastic, and it's perfect. It's so much like you." And then I watched it, and I thought, God, how do I present myself to the world that they say that this is me? But I was fascinated. It was interesting, and it was bizarrely romantic. And I have to admit, I liked it right towards till I got to the end, and I thought, no, just no. We're going to say no to that one. No, I saw someone. I think it was Eli that mentioned Boxing Helena. That's a
yeah.
If
If you have not watched Boxing Helena, that is a very other than Magda and I, who has actually seen this movie?
I've heard about it. I have not seen it.
It has Julian Sands, which sadly we recently lost, and Sherilyn Flynn, and it is a messed up sexual fantasy where basically to keep Helena, Boxing Helena is removing her limbs and keeping her, and it's a very messed up concept. It is but as weird as it sounds, it's not your traditional torture porn that you see with things like Hostel.
Mhm.
And with
Or The Audition is another one that comes to mind.
Audition is brutal. Oh yeah.
I think I saw that one.
I haven't
Is
seen
that
it,
a
but I'm watching it after this.
that was
Trying
an
to think of movies.
Asian horror, right? Audition.
Mhm.
Aye,
Yes.
that's
They're
the
one of my
whole.
most favorite genres. I really love Asian horror.
Oh, I do too. And I love it a lot of times because I don't speak the language. And so there's a lot of things that are, especially if you watch it and it's not subtitled, it is truly pure just scare factor. From the movie, the concept, the music, everything is just amazingly done. It's very beautiful. And quite honestly,
Artistic.
yeah, it's very artistic, and one of the things that I have found is that, the Asian culture has a very different mindset on how they present not only, horror in general, but, like, ghost stories, and, it's just absolutely amazing to me to watch this.
Oh, and my
So
apologies, it wasn't Eli that suggested Boxing Kalini, it was Karen. So my apologies, Karen.
so is there a movie, is there a book, is there something out there that you absolutely refuse to watch because
I was reading Let the Right One In. The movies are completely
Oh,
different from the book.
oh, aye.
Oh,
And
Really?
okay.
Yeah.
I haven't read the
yeah,
book.
it's the same concept. It is a vampire, but the vampire is unisex because
Oh,
it was a male in the beginning, and before it was made vampire, all its sexual organs were removed. But it's at that age where you couldn't tell if it was a male or a female. And
Okay.
so in the book, it's a zombie person that goes to get its kills, comes back one night and tries to rape it. And they're going into detail about this child body being overpowered by a grown male. And I was like, put it down. I'm never reading the rest of that. Yeah.
That reminds me of and this, it didn't go as graphic as that, but I didn't like the movie Splice for a very similar reason.
Mm.
yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the movie, but it's someone spliced genes together. They created this creature. It's a cute little female presenting creature, and it's a baby, and then it grows really fast, and then it's a little girl, and then it's like a child, and then it's an adult, and within this very short span time, it goes from this thing that they're taking care of, that they're nurturing, that it's like their child, to a very sexual being that is trying to do them. And it
Yeah.
made me so incredibly uncomfortable. I was not a fan of that.
That was the first one on, I don't know if you can see this, but that was actually the first one
On
on
your
my
list.
list. Oh, yeah. That movie was so disturbing on so many levels because you do realize that it is almost like an adoption type situation where they are dealing with it's a creature, but they are dealing with something that they have raised as their own parent, as their own child. And then you have the father in the scenario being sexually attracted and having interactions with this creature. Um, quite honestly, one of the ones that actually bothered me, and I haven't been able to get past, was Hostel.
Mm.
And even when I sit down, it because I mean, if you think about it, Hostel was not presented as being inherently overtly sexualized. However, when like my two daughters who are 18 and 27 sat down and watched it for the first time, they could not get past the sexual content in the, I do believe it was probably, I can't remember if it was the first or the second movie that they couldn't get past, but there was sexual content that they just could not get past. And I don't think it was because they were watching it together and there was an age gap because they basically share the same brain cell. But I think it was just the concept itself that it was so disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I shouldn't say anything on this, but I have not come across anything yet that has really gotten me that way. Now, I have not found my limit on that. Now, when we're talking about what I want to experience in real life, that's a completely different thing. I
Oh,
don't want
aye.
Yeah.
anything
Oh,
to
yeah,
do
no, no.
with
Why?
it. But
Fantasy is a
for
totally different thing.
but
Yeah.
for the purpose of reading or watching, I'm going to consume it. And for different reasons. Sometimes it's just to see, I mean, as a creative, I get this stuff in, like I have this input and it's coming from all different places. Some of it is good and some of it is not good, but when I'm writing horror, it comes out. And so I never know how it's going to come out, but I got to have all that input so that I can go to these levels in the horror. So I'm okay with it. With the experience, I should say. It doesn't mean that it does
Right.
not bother me at that moment. I mean,
Mhm.
even Smile 2 bothered me. I don't know if y'all have seen that, but I felt
I
so
did.
heavy, so stressed after the fact. But I'm watching it because I am feeling something and I'm enjoying the fact that it is making me feel something. Uh, I'm glad that I had the experience, you know,
Mhm.
even
Mhm.
Human Centipede, that's disgusting. Isn't it? Human Centipede is disgusting. But I'm glad I
Absolutely.
had that experience because something like that may come out in my own work. And so I'm
Yeah.
happy to consume it to see what happens up here in my head when I get ready to create. But I haven't found my limit yet. I haven't found something that's like, you know
She
what, I'm
ain't
turning this
lying.
off.
She can watch all kinds of stuff, y'all.
Yeah.
Well,
This-
and I think that there's a lot of when you talk about horror and you talk about your interest in horror. I mean, quite honestly, some of the things that I am very passionate about in the horror that I have loved. I talked to my youngest child about, who is 18 years old, and she's like, "Oh, that's boring. That was so tame." And then she's like, "Oh, let me show you this action figure I got of Tara from Terrifier being sawed in half from the crotch down." I'm like,
yeah.
what the hell is wrong with you? I mean,
The
Well,
kids have a different level. I happened to run into some horror fans while I was looking for presents for one of my kids, and I was looking for horror stuff. And these parents were like, "Oh, you like horror?" And I was like, "I'm actually looking for, presents for my 6-year-old." And they're like, "Oh, our kid loves horror." And so we start up this conversation. Well, their child was, I don't know, 16 as opposed
mhm.
to my 6. And we were like, yeah, well, and they started complaining how, oh, horror isn't good anymore. It's so boring, blah, blah, blah. And even the old stuff is boring. And I was like, I don't know. Like, we recently watched Abigail, and it was pretty good for a modern horror movie in the beginning, but it picks up at the end, and it was fun. And they're like, Abigail, are you kidding? That's not real horror. And they start like going off on me for the movie that I chose to watch with my 6-year-old. And they're like, you need to be watching. And they start listing all these, like what we're talking about in this episode, hardcore, heavy horror stuff. And they're like, if it's not this or this or this, it's not horror. And this 16-year-old is going off on me, and their parents are standing behind him, like nodding, like, yep. And I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna go now. Thanks.
Okay. Well, let's talk about this, because quite honestly, there is I don't know honestly with Chantel and Dicey, but I do know our age differences, and a lot of times what you grow up horror over the past how many years are we going to touch on that? But horror over the past however many years I have been watching horror has evolved. When you think about where it originated from and what was considered shocking and horrifying for somebody from, let's say, the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s versus what is out today. When you think about concepts that have I guess we've been there, we've done that, we've seen that. I sit down with my youngest daughter from time to time, and I'm like, "Hey, let's watch something that I really love, Silence of the Lambs," and she's over there freaking asleep, and I'm just like, "What the hell is wrong with you? This is a great movie." Or Seven, these are things that when they came out were extremely, extremely disturbing, but quite honestly cannot even shine a
Mm.
light in comparison to what is being presented today.
well,
Um,
what's being presented today is our reality. People are seeing horrific things in every single day of life.
absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
So,
the
as a
times have just
creative, it's
oh, sorry.
hard. No, as a creative, it's
Yeah.
hard to hit that level. Like, how do you, like she was saying, we experience everything and absorb everything because we're trying to figure out how do we turn that on in somebody. I did this in the haunted house industry. How do you hit the levels of different horrifying things for people to make them scared when they're walking through your convention? Your haunted house attraction. It's a very interesting world. You're right. I'm probably going to be 51 soon. So I definitely came from an era where I felt like it was a golden age of horror. I love the 70s. The 80s was a little more cheesy, but still a lot of fun. We got a lot of great stuff out of the 80s.
Well,
Mm.
you're I'm gonna be honest with you, you're in my age bracket, a little bit younger than I am. And when I think about shocking horror from my youth, I think of things like I Spit on Your Grave. I think of
Mm.
things like Last House on the Left. And I mean, by all practical purposes, those should still be horrifying and shocking concepts based in today's. Sadly, unfortunately, we go to SA for what most people deem as the most horrific thing that can happen to them. And I agree, it is a very horrific thing that can happen to them. But then they take it, when you think about the horror industry as a whole, and they take it the next step further. Um, when is it too much? When does it go too far?
I think that's gonna change. No matter what we say now, in 10 years, the answer is gonna be different.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
Let's-
for a really good example, and this isn't horror, this is actually science fiction. We were watching Blade Runner with another family friend and their son, an older son. I think he was like 16, something like that at the time. And we're watching this movie. It's a movie I grew up on. It's a regular classic science fiction film. And we get through a couple scenes in it, and the son turns to us all and he was like, "Hey guys, this is really rapey." And I was sitting there the whole time thinking, like,
Yes.
wow, I don't remember like a lot of this being as this as it is. And like the kid just turned and called it out. And I was like, I mean, he's not wrong.
No.
So like no matter what we say the answer is now, it's an ever changing thing through the years.
Yeah. And that's why like Dicey and I always try to talk about consent, especially when we're doing a heavy sex themed episode. That's something I'm glad she brings up, because thank goodness she's here to remind people of these things.
I'm 50. I'm proudly 50, y'all. So I'm right there with you.
I love it.
It's to your point, DL.
Mhm.
Am I pronouncing that correctly?
DL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it is still horrifying to people, and that's why we see so many different versions of it. Like, how many times have they done "I Spit on Your Grave"? They have remade that movie
Yeah.
over and over and over again. They know it's terrifying. You know, it is constantly being remade. Except you gotta. This is why all of this, a whole bunch of the different horrors that we grew up with are coming back. You know, we got Alien coming back. We got like all of them are coming back. They're just redoing it. But what they have that we didn't have back in the 80s and early 90s and everything is great sci-fi. I mean,
Yes.
special effects.
Absolutely.
They have the CGI and the special effects. And so everything is just that much more cinematic. So they can put everything, it looks real. There's no break in it. In the editing part, you can't tell where the real ends and the horror, the part that they made to look scary begins. It's seamless now. And the jump scares are more terrifying because they have all the technology to use that we didn't have back then. Then you could tell that it paused and the axe came down. and then you just see the limb sitting there. But now it's like you don't know.
Yeah.
It just looks like it just really happened. But it's kind of like it's really the same kind of stories told over and over again, basically.
Absolutely.
I agree with you. And when you think about movies that, and one of the ones that's actually kind of in my psychosexual, because I don't know if it equates to bestiality, but when you think about things like Shape of Water, beautiful movie. It's not a horror movie in my opinion, but the character, that is the aquatic character, is very much the Gilman from creature from the Black Lagoon, and she does
Mhm.
have a sexual relationship with him. And
Mhm.
you're looking at it, and it's like, this is not new. This is not new story. This is something that has existed all along, but now we are adding new elements to it and bringing it in. I'll be honest with you, I absolutely loved that movie. It was so
Yeah,
beautiful,
it was
so
So
beautiful.
I do have a question when it comes to sex in movies.
Yes.
What about a movie that you saw when you were younger, say, when you're still blossoming, still learning about your sexuality? Did you have a horror movie that sort of surprised you to the point where you didn't expect to have that sort of heated reaction to it? Because I know for mine, of all the movies, the original Fright Night, I have to say,
Oh,
Chris Sarandon in that, the scene where he turns Amy was just, I know, had I already not hit puberty by that point, I'm pretty sure that would have shocked me into it right there immediately.
that was mine. Fright Night.
Mm, lovely.
Mine was
yeah.
Demon Night Part 2, was it, with the redhead? She brought
Oh,
my sexuality out. I was like,
I could
oh,
see that. I could see that. Well, as I
okay.
said, I mentioned, Catherine Deneuve. I'm pretty sure her scene with Susan Sarandon. Oh, Lord.
I'm trying to think of the exact zombie movie. I think it is Night of the Living Dead Part 3. I think that is the movie. It is the girl who's bit by the zombie and she's slowly turning into, but the pain helps her like focus and not turn as fast. So by the end of the movie, she ends up with like corkscrews through her and
Oh,
she's just
wow.
covered in spikes and she looks so badass. I remember watching that as a kid and just being like, that shouldn't be as sexy as this.
Yeah, yeah.
I was going to be like horribly tacky and say the Exorcist, but that would have been awful. Unless I was just messing around.
Oh, dear. Mm.
I have to. I mean, just quite honestly, Billy Zane in Demon Night. Oh,
Oh,
sweet.
why? Mm.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is
So you know
just
what I'm
like,
talking about. Was he?
yeah, yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
one I'm talking about. So is that one or two?
Oh, yes,
I think that was the first one,
the first
and,
one. Right.
quite honest with you, I was at Smoky Mountain Fan Fest with Lauren, and
Mm.
I was in line to meet him, and everybody was just like, can you do the monologue? Can you do the Demon Night monologue? Because I'm just like, panties would have hit the floor, not gonna lie. But the other one that
If it makes you feel good, do it.
I don't know how I feel about this one, and I don't know what this one says about me, because it also makes me wanna grab my titties and just go, "Ow." But, the Night of the Demons, the lipstick scene with, Linnea Quigley, where she's, like, drawing on herself, and then all of a sudden the lipstick goes into her boobs, and you're
Mhm.
just, like, going, I am very turned on and very kinda ow by the whole
Mm.
thing. You're sitting there thinking to yourself, and like, there's just something about this that is just not right. But damn, good God, it's Linnea Quigley. Come on now.
I have a question for y'all. At what point do
Mm.
you get to the point? Because by now you've had some questions like, is that normal? Is there something wrong with me? At what point do you get to, like, it just is, I'm accepting that this is what I like. I don't care what anybody has to say about it. I don't care what anybody thinks. It is what it is. When did you get to that point?
I
I
was
think
very lucky to be raised by a family that didn't give a heck
Mhm.
about you're the boys, you're the girls, I don't care. And like
Mhm.
so when it came to like I'm into all of this weird gothic things and my mom was just like, okay, well, do you want pizza tonight or not? Like that was that reaction.
See, I'm lucky in the same way in that my family are a load of freaks. We're all weirdos. And my parents were both in medical practice and were very open about all things sexual and were wanted to talk and were very open to it. And so probably the moment where I decided this is who I am and I'm comfortable with it had to be as 15 years old. And I
Mm.
got to be in the shadow cast of the Rocky Horror Picture Show as Magenta.
Okay.
I think that was the moment that I said, I think I know where I am and I'm all right with that. I know I come off as quite the prude, and most people think of me as being
No,
very Mary Poppins in a lot of ways, but
I
we
I'm
don't.
not.
We do not.
I'm not.
Mm.
I sound quite proper, but I'm common as dirt. So
You sound quite proper, but you sound also like you'd be wearing a leather corset and holding a whip while also telling me that I did something very wrong in your voice.
I have both those things.
You've been a very, very bad girl.
I know. Can you tell us that? How
Yeah.
bad have we been?
How, Magda, how bad?
Very naughty, naughty girls.
See, there you go.
There you go. Look at you sound just like Dean Winchester and Sam Winchester's nemesis. You know what I'm talking about? She became the
Yeah.
queen of hell. So, girl, I
Oh,
was not thinking of you as Mary Poppins when we started
That would be
talking.
Ruth McConnell. She too is a Scots lady, so I'll take that. I'm not all offended. I'm flattered. Quite fond of her, actually.
She's amazing. Yeah.
You have given me an inspiration. You mentioned Dean Winchester. I have a question now. What
Oh.
is a sex scene that kind of hit these radars that we're talking about today that was a TV show? Like,
Anything with Damien. I'm sorry.
Damon
I'm going with
Salvatore.
Damon. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't cut in front of
No.
anybody.
No, sorry. I knew it.
Damon
The moment you-
Salvatore. Yeah.
The moment the D came out of your mouth, I was like, yes! That didn't sound right, but you know what I meant.
The D came out of my mouth. Ian Somerhalder in The Vampire Diaries for sure. Any scene.
All right, this may be a bit on the extra disturbing side, but
No.
Maz Mikkelsen as Hannibal Lecter.
Oh my God! Yes.
Him with Alana Bloom. That scene was.
Michael C. Hall, Dexter.
Oh,
Any of the kill scenes.
I got him.
Good one.
I got him right here on the wall.
I'm
yeah,
gonna
nice.
say the episode of Buffy and Spike.
Which
Down
one?
in Spike's like dungeon.
Yeah.
Whenever all of that was happening, that was quite a scene.
Agreed.
I think
Agreed.
I had all those. Yeah, you guys got all the ones I was thinking.
2 thumbs
Check.
up.
Check.
Okay, what about you, ladies? I'm
I'm gonna go one more, you guys.
Okay.
Sons of Anarchy. Sons of Anarchy.
What scene? What's the scene like? Tell me. Give me the details.
I got them right here too.
Yeah, he Charlie
Charlie Hunnam.
Yeah, in that very first episode, the pilot episode where we see him going down, you see his butt and his back, and you're just like, wow, that's a lot of tasty stuff going on there. I'm here for whatever happens from this point on. They were smart putting him in that very first episode like that.
You know, he's playing serial killer next. He's coming out as the serial killer.
Who? Which one? Oh,
Charlie Hunnam. He's gonna be, what's that? The monster.
Edward Gein. Ed
Gein?
Yes, he's gonna be the next one. Yeah.
Is he the? That's the next Netflix. To follow Dahmer.
Well,
By the way, Dahmer was disturbing. Dahmer was one of those that I could not get through. I have watched it in segments.
I watched the whole thing. It was difficult to get through.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I watched it just because to say I did. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I watched it all just like, wow, eating my popcorn. Wow.
I was a little
ahead.
I liked it, and I also didn't. I don't know. I have a weird thing about taking someone who has harmed so many people, and the people's families to this day are still alive and still grieving.
That's why I didn't watch it.
People. Well, I watched it because I do this podcast and I want to be able to talk about what's going on in today and all of that. That's why I watched. That's why I watched Pearl, honestly. But I don't know. They were oddly sexualizing him in a way that Dahmer should not be that sexualized. I get it. The actor's really hot. Okay.
Well,
like he's played hot actors before. Why they cast him in this, I don't know. It was
Well,
weird.
here's the thing, though. I've never been convicted of any crimes, and I have never committed any crimes. However, I understand the sexuality when it comes to demented behavior, and I think that was on point. I really do.
That's fair.
So, yeah, and it is not necessarily a sexy thing to see, like, what's his name that went on the rampage, Richard Ramirez.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
There's nothing sexy about him, but at that time, the stuff he was doing, he was just going into people's houses and, like, raping them, sometimes leaving, raping them and then killing them, sometimes just killing them. And it is just something about, I mean, the guy was obviously, he had a brain injury, is what they discovered later. But there's something in our human psyche that's just like, okay, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna leave my window open tonight. And when they
100%.
arrested the man, yeah,
No,
when they
like,
arrested the man,
seriously.
there were women throwing themselves on the car, showing their breasts. Like, they were
That
so, like, oh my God, there he is, like
that
freaking
just recently
rain
happened.
showers happening between their legs. It was crazy.
Yeah,
Well, I
there
mean, think
was
about Ted Bundy. I mean,
I was
Ted
just about to
Bundy.
say,
Bundy.
Yeah.
Bundy was up. Women were obsessed with him. They're coming to the. I remember watching videos of interviews from the time of women that were being asked about him and saying, "Oh, but he's so handsome," and I thought, "Girl,
Yeah.
No.
Wade Wilson was just recently, he was like
Oh.
a women murderer, but apparently he looks very pretty. He has a freaking swastika tattooed on his face. And this was like within the last year or two, women were falling over themselves for this serial killer who kills women, who has a swastika tattooed on his face, but he's pretty.
Well, and
What?
here's the thing. Here's the thing. If
Is
you've
dating that
watched,
bad out there?
I'm sorry.
Is dating that bad out there?
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. No, but here's the thing. So a lot of people have equated him to Deadpool because of the name.
Because of the
Um,
name, yeah.
And evidently, prior to him getting involved in white supremacy groups, you can find images of him without all of the tattoos, and he wasn't a bad looking guy. Does not mean by any stretch of the imagination that I support who he is, what he did, because I mean it's absolutely the most disgusting thing out there. But women throwing themselves at serial killers is not a new thing. Women, I mean, Dahmer had people that had women that were chasing him down while he was in prison. I mean, when you think about Richard Ramirez and you think about Ted Bundy, and you realize Ted Bundy actually was, if I remember correct, was married. He actually got married while he was in prison.
Manson.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Manson. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a lot of things that women will do, but I don't necessarily think that it is because they actually find him sexually attractive, but they find the publicity, they find the infamy, and they find that the I want to be famous. There are 15 minutes of fame associated with this person. It's hard to determine what is actually meant to be sexual attraction to a person versus what is their infamy, what is their
aye."
persona.
And that goes back to reality versus fantasy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the power play that they had mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I have your life in my hands power. I don't know why that is so attractive. And as someone who's like I get so mad at other people for being attracted to that when it comes to serial killers and stuff. I'm sitting there and I'm just like, no, I get it. I get it.
Well, I mean, think of it
Grab me
this
by
way.
the throat. Okay.
How many times have you been sexually attracted to somebody who is a bad boy or has exhibited bad boy tendencies? Somebody who can take you out of your comfort zone and make you do things that you didn't think that you could do. And I think that a lot of that attraction comes into play, the sexual aspect of it comes into play in that you no longer have control of who you are in yourself.
And
And
they're very
see,
charismatic too. Like they are
Mhm.
Oh,
charming.
yeah.
I understand. So their confidence that we were talking about before, they're giving off some energy that's like, oh well. I mean, it might be psychopathic, but it's still like I'm the
It,
man.
it's
or,
the
or
dopamine. It's the dopamine. We get dopamine hits from these things.
mm,
We
I
do.
also wonder how much of that goes back to like almost like caveman brain, like, oh, this person is strong, they are
mm,
confident, and they're like clicking all of her boxes for this would be a good person to like. I wonder how like they're protective and they can protect me, and I don't know, I
yeah.
just wonder how much of that is the psychology of that.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think we fool ourselves.
like even with villains, I love the fact that again, this is fantasy though, with I love that villains will do what needs to be done. And sometimes people need to be killed in the movies and the books and the shows and stuff. And it's just that we draw a line between what's fantasy and reality. Like I know that this is okay in the movie, but it's not okay in real life. But in the movies or books or shows, if there is somebody that needs to be killed because they have done something that is affecting more people, that like it's better for them to be dealt with for the safety of the masses, for instance, then who was actually going to step up and do that except for somebody that would step up and do that? And they're often the villain, but they're also necessary, that whole necessary evil thing. And so whereas I don't typically watch true crime that has real life victims, I have gotten to the point that I understand why people might really enjoy that. I try not to be judgmental about it. And but there is a psychology to it, I think, that goes beyond just like being entertained. Like I'm entertained when I watch serial killers. Somebody mentioned Dexter earlier.
Mhm.
I'm entertained when I watch Joe Goldberg and his antics, but I know that those are fictional characters. If it were real life, I wouldn't be entertained. I'd be really disgusted. But I understand how if someone else cannot cannot in their mind compartmentalize from fantasy to fiction, then why they would be attracted, because that's how I feel when I'm watching fantasy or watching fictional character.
Well, when you think about the whole concept, and I think that there's a TikTok soundbite that talks about the villain, why women choose, or why somebody, I don't want to say women in general, but why people would choose the villain over the hero, because the hero would sacrifice the world or would sacrifice you to save the world, whereas the villain would sacrifice the world to save you. I think that there is a romanticized element of danger that comes
Mhm.
along with a character. I mean, quite honestly, when you look at characters like Loki, I
Oh,
absolutely,
yes.
oh yes. I mean, when you
Yes.
sit there and you think about Loki, it's like you know for a fact Loki would sacrifice everybody in the universe to save the woman that he loves, whether or not that's real, or but that's the whole persona that's presented. And so and therefore women have a tendency, and men have a tendency to lean into that dangerous villainous character that would put you above all humanity. But the sad
Yeah.
thing is, that's not the case. That's not the case at all. I mean, when you think about these people who are willing to do these horrible things, 9 times out of 10, they are willing to destroy their family, the woman that they love, their family, their children. They're willing to sacrifice everything for um, the 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 pursuit of what it is that they are searching for.
Mm-hmm.
I will
And
give you two quick. Oh, sorry.
Mhm.
I
No,
was
yeah.
just going to say there's two things that just came out recently that show the younger generation's perspective of what you just said.
Mm.
Lisa Frankenstein,
Mhm.
and there's one episode on the new Halloween horror from the American Horror Stories that they're doing, the little anthologies
Mm.
Mhm.
about the girl who befriends another girl on a chat room, and she's new to a town and they become friends. So in both these stories, people basically befriend, and in this one particular story they befriend somebody, and then she doesn't like her because she ends up pushing her to do things that to be brave, and it ends up making her hurt her father, hurt her teacher, and then she breaks her own arm for this girl. And then
Mm.
she's like, I gotta get away from this girl. She's toxic. She ends up
Mhm.
with a guy, and then this guy is actually also enthralled by this girl and ends up killing her for her. So it's really weird. And I'm like, wow, I mean, that really spoke volumes to me about what the youth is
Mhm.
going through. They're so desperate for connection because everything's on viral, you know? The other one, Lisa Frankenstein, was like my goth teenager dream, right? This girl goes to this
Yes.
grave and she cries on this guy's grave who's been dead for centuries. And then he wakes up and comes back to her and she slowly brings him to life. It's in the 80s. She
Mhm.
slowly brings him to life using a tanning bed. And then they go on this killing spree and then she kills herself and then they live forever together as two
If
beasts from the tanning bed.
if y'all have not watched Lisa Frankenstein, by the way, Magda DL, you would probably very much like this movie.
Oh,
I
I know.
watched it with my daughter. Wasn't expecting so much penis chopping, but you know what? It's fine. It happens.
Good to know.
It's good to know. Yeah.
Good to know.
But it was really cute in like a teeny,
Really morbid way.
yeah, teeny bopper morbid way. And I enjoyed the movie. I do love their um loving back and forth with the sorry. My husband has texted me. I do love their back and forth with the love going on and how they
Mm.
like come into their own. Um, it feels like one of those movies that it hit, and I've already seen about 3 to 4 people dressed as
Mhm.
Lisa for cosplay or
Yeah.
Halloween. And it feels like it's going to become a cult classic.
I
So
think so. Agreed.
yeah,
Yeah.
highly recommend Lisa
But you look at these
Frankenstein.
shows, this is all the same stuff we went through back, when we were
Oh,
born in the
absolutely.
1900s as a kid, like the kids like to tease us. Y'all were born in the 1900s. Like, what the heck?
I would just like I would like to say that the Josh Hartnett in Trap is another serial killer that is
Oh,
gorgeous. Josh
yeah.
Hartnett is gorgeous, and so we kind of make some allowances for him killing people. Like it I think there's something to be said about the pretty privilege also. So
Oh, yeah.
when you mentioned about Evan Peterson being cast as a serial killer, and now we got Charlie Hunnam as a serial killer, they know what they're doing. They know that
Absolutely.
we are going to watch, we're going to love it, even if it is depicting heinous things. I mean, Joel Goldberg is, I'm escaping his name right now, but these are gorgeous men that we're already drawn to. And when you're pretty, that's women too. When you're
Mhm.
pretty,
Yeah.
you do get away with more. You
No,
get
that
away
is
with a lot more.
true.
So I think that's another part of human psychology. The prettier you are, the more people allow you to get away with. You can get closer to people. Now just think about it. Think of somebody that you think is very unattractive. They're not going to be able to get away with that the same way.
No.
You're not going to let them get close to
Yeah.
you,
If a really ugly guy knocks on your door at 2 a.m., like, I
Right.
got a flat tire, you're going to be like, I don't care.
But if Josh
Shut the
Hartnett
door, call the cops. Get out of here fast. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if Josh Hartnett knocked on the door, you'd be like, "Come on in,"
Yeah, come
we'll
Hold
deal
on, let me go get my nighty on.
we'll deal with whatever issue you got later. But come on in, it's so they can the barrier is already kind of broken. Like whatever wall you would have up is kind of already lowered a little bit more because they're beautiful to look at.
Well, I mean,
It's
you
the
think about
vampire thing all over again.
Well, think
Yeah.
about Ted Bundy. The reason that Ted Bundy got away with it as long as he did is because people were like, "Oh, there's no way in hell that he would be doing this." This is a attractive man who seems to have a decent job, who seems to be, he's hitting on all of the damn boxes. I mean, he's just checking the boxes. He's good looking. He has a decent
Mhm.
job. He's semi-intelligent. And so people did not want to believe that this man could be a serial killer. And then you find yourself that you find that women are throwing themselves at him, even after they know that. When you talk about Ed Gein, that was not the case. I mean, Ed Gein was kind of, I mean, when you look at,
Fish too.
yeah,
Pam
I mean,
Bagley.
Albert Fish? Like
Finch.
you're
Oh God, yeah. You're
casting
just
an
like,
attractive guy for Albert Finch. He
no.
molests little boys and stabs needles inside of his own skin and stomach. Like that. That's who you're
Ew.
gonna. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess.
Penn Bagley was his name. I just thought about Joe Goldberg on you.
Ah.
It's Penn Bagley.
I know who you're talking about.
The Pretty Privilege goes a long way. The newest Netflix movie that's going to be coming out, The Dating Show Killer. He got away with as much as he did because he was an attractive man, and he was like, "I can make you famous. Let me come take photos of you as a model." Blah 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 blah.
Was he really though? Because I mean, I was
He
looking
was-
at pictures. No,
I thought he was
ew.
semi-attractive. Okay, maybe that's just a me thing. I like the scruffier. Anyway, yeah, we're at the top of the hour, by the way. Let's just like tank there.
I know. Let's stick a pin in that. We'll talk about that later, Lauren. What the hell? Okay. No, we are actually at the top of the hour. And
We're well past it.
we're well past the
Episode went
hour.
so good.
Sebastian Stan plays fresh. Also, he
Oh.
eats people, but that's Sebastian Stan. Okay,
I know. And you're sitting there looking at that Sebastian Stan. That man could eat me. I'd be fine.
I would have been on the plate.
I know. I'm like, here's the plate. Lay on it. I know several people that would have been on the plate. We're not going to talk about that. I mean, good God, it's the Winter Soldier. The Winter Soldier and his emo eyeliner has decided that he wants to eat you. Put yourself on a damn plate. Be happy.
I was like, would you like me with salt and pepper or just hot sauce?
Hot sauce. I'm sorry. I'm looking at you going hot sauce. I'm thinking it's hot sauce. Okay.
She wasn't asking you to answer, Tia.
I did though. Come on now. Shush. Stop. Oh my God.
No, I get it.
Oh Lord have mercy. We are at the top of the hour. We have kind of far exceeded the top of the hour, but it has been entertaining. So please, ladies, Dicey and Chantel, please tell us, where can we find you? Where can people find you and follow you and get involved in what you guys are doing?
Well, for me,
I was trying to give you the
that's
mic.
okay.
Okay.
You want me to go first? You want to go first? You can go first.
Okay. I've been talking the whole time. Go.
Oh, well, no, I'm just saying, for me, it's easy. ChantelRenee.com. That's my website. You can find what I'm doing most of the time there, or my cats are tearing stuff up. Or you can look me up on Facebook, Chantel Renee, or CR Renee on Instagram, or find us at the Sex and Horror Podcast on Instagram.
All right.
Thank you, ladies, so much for having us. I have enjoyed this conversation so much. I'm Dicey Grinner. I'm at Dicey Grinner all over social media whenever I'm actually consistent. I'm there, I'm not. It just depends on what's going on. My website is diceyGrinnerbooks.com. I'm not sure if it's updated, but I'm a work in progress because I stay busy. Chantel runs the Instagram page. We also have a Facebook group for Sex and Horror if you want to join that. And I'm also, my books, whatever hasn't been banned is on Amazon and wherever you can find books online. I write the Narcoleptic Vampire series. So I have demons, werewolves, vampires, you name it. All the creatures that go bump in the night, they're heavily spicy. I also have books that are just dark, erotic romance that's spicy without the creatures. So whatever tickles your fancy, I probably got it, but just keep in mind that it's hardcore and I make no apologies. Like if you can stand it, come on. But if not, just tell somebody else about it.
Anyway.
I think we can stand the hardcore. I think that our group here generally is very happy with the hardcore.
Yay.
Yay. So definitely going to be looking that up. So I do have a bit of an announcement that is that I've been meaning to make for the last couple of episodes, but just so our fans and our friends know that Ice Cream Queens is actually going to be on hiatus for a little while. We are looking at how to come back with something a little bit unique and a little bit new to really kind of capture what we are trying to focus on. So look for Ice Cream Queens in the near future, probably beginning of the year, with some new concepts and new ideas. So throughout the
restructuring.
a little restructuring. So throughout the holiday season, just kind of let us understand that we are taking a bit of break because we need a break. It's been a minute, and we kind of need a break.
2-3
And
years.
So we're excited to kind of sit back and figure out where we want to go and how we want to proceed with this. But also, just look for us. We'll be coming back soon.
At conventions near you.
Oh yeah, now we're always going to be somewhere doing something and talking about horror and being our normal goth girl horror fanatic self. So, but yeah, please look for us, but also look for something new coming probably in 2025. So, but with that said, I'm going to see pleasant screams and enjoy the rest of this year. And hopefully we will see you soon. And
Bye.
bye. I'm going to continue to hit the end stream until it ends because we never
does it.